woman behind the silence. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through the jacaranda outside the kitchen window, spreading violet shadows across the tiled floor of Amira Bashir's home. The scent of simmering cinnamon rice mingled with the faint trace of jasmine that always clung to her hair, creating the quiet kind of warmth that once made her house feel invincible. Amira moved around the kitchen with the practiced elegance of a conductor. Her wooden spoon tapped the rim of a copper pot, keeping time with the rain that had started to drum on the roof. 10 years of marriage had trained her ears to notice small rhythms, the tempo of rain, the hush of children reading in the next room, the low purr of Tariq's German sedan when it rolled into the driveway each evening. Except lately the sedan came much later, its engine cooling long after the rice had crusted in the pot. She told herself it was the new expansion at Tariq's architecture firm. Projects in Dubai needed midnight video calls, clients in Doha expected dawn walkthroughs. She rehearsed these explanations in her mind so convincingly that even when her closest friend, Hafsa, raised an eyebrow, Amira smiled and repeated them. Big contracts demand big sacrifices, she would say, shaking cinnamon into her tea. The words tasted like loyalty, but felt like ash. Tonight she had braided her hair the way Tariq used to love, 3 thick ropes woven with thin ribbons of gold thread. The children, 8-year-old Salim and 6-year-old Layla, helped press the ribbons into place, giggling when they tickled her cheeks. Amira wanted Tariq to open the front door and see that his family had been waiting, shining, believing in him. The door never opened. Hours later the children slept on the couch, their small spines curved against each other like quotation marks that held an unstated question. Amira carried them to bed and returned to the kitchen where the rice had grown cold. She switched off the single remaining light, and in the glow of the street lamp outside she noticed how her reflection in the window looked like a ghostly watermark over her once vibrant life. Days stretched into weeks. Tariq's kisses turned into quick nods, his laughter into a hum. The bed felt wider. The dinners grew shorter. He made calls in the garden and came back smelling of unfamiliar perfume that clashed with Amira's jasmine. One Tuesday evening, Amira gathered courage like a fragile glass and approached him while he tied his cufflinks. "Tariq," she said softly, "are we all right?" He did not meet her eyes. "Deadlines are killing me, that is all." "I can help," she offered, surprising herself with the tremor in her voice. "We can talk. Pray, anything." He smiled, but it was thin and fleeting, like a crescent moon swallowed by clouds. "You worry too much, Amira. Go to sleep." His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and stepped into the hallway to answer, closing the door as gently as a thief. Beyond the wood, his voice dropped to a hush that sounded intimate, conspiratorial, nothing like the bored responses he gave her. She pressed her ear to the panel, but only caught a faint chuckle, the kind that used to belong to her. That night lightning crackled across the sky, and the storm rattled every window except the one between their hearts. Saturday mornings had always belonged to Hafsa and Amira. They met in the old bookshop on Coral Street where dusty shelves bent under the weight of tales about heroes who made promises and kept them. That morning Hafsa's hijab was pinned with a silver brooch shaped like a question mark, and she used it like punctuation. "Your eyes are red, Amira. Tell me." Amira thumbed through a cookbook, pretending to read. "Tariq is tired. Contracts, deadlines." "My dear," Hafsa interrupted, "contracts do not leave lipstick on a man's collar." Amira's gaze snapped up. "He would never." "I saw him," Hafsa whispered, leaning so close the scent of cardamom gum mingled with Amira's jasmine. 2 nights ago outside the new rooftop lounge. He was laughing with a woman who held his hand like it was already his. The bookstore seemed to tilt. Letters on the page swam. Amira closed the book and pressed it to her chest as if it could steady her pulse. Words arrived, but they stuck to her tongue, refusing to exit. Hafsa squeezed her shoulder. "Ask him. Make him say the truth out loud. Silence is where lies grow teeth." Amira nodded, but inside her, a lifetime of conditioning coiled like a snake. Good wives do not interrogate. Good mothers keep the peace. Good women remain soft. That conditioning lasted until the next rainfall. On Friday the rain arrived in thick diagonal sheets that blurred the city into watercolor. After collecting Salim and Layla from school, Amira dated through downtown to pick up a new umbrella. The children dozed in the back seat, lulled by the storm as she guided the car toward the covered parking of Mirage Plaza, where boutiques glowed like jewel boxes. She hurried across the slick pavement, her scarf plastered to her neck. Inside the atrium, fountains hissed beneath a glass ceiling. Then she saw them. Tariq stood in front of a high-end jewelry store, his posture relaxed, his smile young again. Beside him was a woman whose beauty was sharpened by confidence, tall, alabaster skin, crimson lips curving around a laugh that floated upward like champagne bubbles. She reached out and straightened the knot of his tie. He bent, whispered something, and she laughed again. For a heartbeat Amira thought the world had frozen, but it was only her. The fountain roared on. The lights blazed. People hurried past, unaware that a marriage was being cut open behind the glass. Amira took one step forward, then another, until her reflection merged with theirs on the rain-streaked pane. Tariq did not notice. He held a bracelet against the woman's wrist, gauging its fit as if he had practiced on another arm for years. Something inside Amira cracked with a clean, terrifying clarity. She turned, walked back through the atrium, and forced her legs not to run. In the parking lot she buckled her sleeping children into their seats, fingers trembling. The engine rumbled to life. She drove home through streets that looked unfamiliar, as though the betrayal had repainted every landmark. That night she waited in the living room. She braided and unbraided her ribbons until they frayed. At 1 in the morning Tariq's key scraped the lock. He entered smelling of rain and sandalwood that was not his. He paused when he saw her. "You are awake." "I saw you," she said, voice even. "At Mirage Plaza. With her." Rainwater dripped from the hem of his coat onto the hardwood, each drop a puncture in her composure. He opened his mouth, closed it, then exhaled through his nose. "You should have been asleep," he muttered. "That is your response." "I am exhausted, Amira." He slumped onto the sofa, rubbing his temples. "I cannot keep pretending we are happy." She folded her hands, knuckles white. "You think an affair will fix that?" He flinched at the word affair, as though hearing the correct label made the crime heavier. "Celine makes me feel alive. With you, everything is routine. The children, the bills, the same dinners, the same questions." Her throat constricted. "Routine is the skeleton of love, Tariq. It is what lets love move without collapsing." He stood and paced. "Look, I need space. You and the kids can stay in the guest house for a while. It will give us time to think." His casual cruelty struck harder than any fist. "The guest house," she repeated. "You want to exile us while she takes my place here." "I am offering a solution that hurts no one." Amira laughed, a brittle, disbelieving sound. "Hurts no one. Tell that to our children." Tariq raked a hand through his hair. "I will explain it to them. They will understand." She saw then that he had already rehearsed this conversation, polished its edges, carved her resistance out of it. The decision was old to him, delivered to her only when convenient. Amira rose, smoothing her skirt with trembling palms. "Fine. We will move tomorrow. But I will not explain your cowardice to our children. That burden is yours." He frowned, as if she had failed to appreciate his generosity. "Thank you for being reasonable." Reasonable. The word echoed in his skull long after he left the room. Morning brought bright sun like an insult. Tariq packed their suitcases without meeting Amira's eyes. He told Salim and Layla they were having an adventure in the little studio behind the garden. The children, thrilled by novelty, squealed and chased each other across the grass. Amira carried folded sheets, towels, and a single-framed family photo. She placed it on the narrow dresser of the studio, unsure whether it was a memory or a warning. When Tariq hauled Celine's luggage into the main house that afternoon, Amira watched from the guest house window. The mistress's laugh floated across the garden the way smoke seeps under doors. Slow, invasive, impossible to ignore. Amira closed the curtain. She would not gift them the sight of her breaking. In that dim room, with her children giggling on a futon and her life in boxes around her, something inside Amira clicked into place. It was not rage. It was not grief. It was purpose uncloaking itself. She tucked her children into makeshift beds and stepped onto the tiny porch. Moonlight draped the garden in silver. Somewhere beyond the jasmine vines, Tariq and Celine toasted to their bold new beginning. Amira lifted her face to the night. A decade of loyalty had not built an unbreakable home after all. But perhaps it had built an unbreakable woman. She whispered one sentence into the darkness. a vow to herself more powerful than any prayer she had ever spoken. I will not be silent for nothing. The first week in the guest house felt like living inside an echo. Every sound from the main house arrived thin and distorted. Laughter, a music playlist heavy on romantic ballads, the clink of wine glasses against marble countertops she had scrubbed for years. Amira focused on creating joy for Salim and Layla. They painted cardboard castles, roasted marshmallows over a candle when the electric stove failed, and invented bedtime stories in which brave foxes protected their kits from giants with shallow hearts. At night, when innocence slept, Amira opened her battered laptop. She navigated to an old email thread labeled Aurora Tech Seed Round. 6 years ago, when Tariq's firm had posted its first big profit, she had asked for a small sum to invest in a friend's startup. Tariq laughed off the idea, declaring that tech was a bubble. Amira saved grocery money, accepted translation gigs, and eventually wired $5,000 into a seed fund. Now the subject line of each incoming email read Aurora Tech, pre-IPO update. She clicked the newest message. Dear early investor, we are thrilled to announce regulatory approval for our initial public offering scheduled next quarter. Your Class A shares will convert at a ratio of 20-to-1 upon listing. Please review the attached documentation to formalize your voting status as a primary shareholder. Amira's pulse hammered. She scrolled to her share count, did the math twice, then a third time. The result was the same. Her modest seed round had multiplied into a fortune. Enough to buy freedom many times over. Enough to rewrite what silence meant. The next email was from an unfamiliar address, Rafiq Dazi at dazilaw.com. Ms. Bashir, my name is Rafiq Dazi. Aurora's board recommended I reach out to assist early investors with legal structuring before the IPO. You hold a significant stake and voting power. I would be honored to represent your interests. Please advise if we can meet. Amira reread the word significant stake until they glowed. She looked around the cramped guest house. Children's drawings fluttered on the wall, secured by mismatched tape. A kettle whistled on the single burner. Outside, Celine's laughter burst again, bright and brittle. Amira closed the laptop, inhaled, exhaled. Strength is born in the same lungs that once held sobs. She reopened the computer and began typing. Mr. Dazi, thank you for your message. I am available Monday at 10. My children will accompany me. Please send the address. Best. Amira Bashir. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. She added one more sentence. Please prepare the paperwork necessary to transfer residential property titles in the event of marital asset dispute. Then she hit send. Sunday evening, the main house hosted a dinner party. Cars lined the driveway. Jazz drifted through open French doors, accompanied by the murmur of compliments about Celine's European education and flawless interior design taste. Amira bathed the children, read them 2 chapters of The Lion, The Witch and the Wardrobe, and tucked them in with kisses that lingered. She stepped onto the porch where fairy lights cast gentle halos around potted basil. From here she could see Celine in the dining room, gesturing dramatically while guests leaned in. Tariq's hand rested on the small of her back with casual possession. His smile shone with the arrogance of a man who believed consequences were allergic to him. Amira's heart gave one violent twist, then steadied. She had cried her last tear over that man. The future was already on its way, black and sleek as a storm cloud with lightning in its belly. She went inside, opened her notebook, and drafted a list. At the top she wrote silence's strategy. Underneath she outlined 3 columns: what I have, what I need, what will remain mine. Her pen moved with sure strokes. She possessed an investment portfolio, primary voting rights, and the will to protect her children. She needed an ironclad lawyer, a private bank account, and time. What would remain hers, no matter what, were her name and her children's trust. On Monday the sky was a clean blue, as though the city wanted no memory of rain. Amira dressed in a charcoal blazer she had bought on clearance years ago, hoping to someday attend business conferences. It fit perfectly now, shoulders squared by purpose. Salim and Layla wore matching navy sweaters and held hands as they walked into the marble lobby of Dazi and Associates. Rafiq Dazi greeted them with a warm smile that reached steady eyes. He knelt to the children, produced 2 fountain pens, and asked if future CEOs might need signing tools. The children beamed, charmed. In a glass-walled conference room, Rafiq outlined the IPO timeline, tax implications, and protective structures against marital claims. When he spoke of trusts and asset shields, Amira listened like a student who knew the exam would determine her life. Rafik closed a thick folder. You hold 14% of Aurora Tech's voting power. That makes you the second largest private shareholder. Amira pressed her palms to the cool conference table to anchor herself. I want everything ready within 3 weeks. After that, we act. Rafik nodded. We can expedite. May I ask, does your husband know? He knows many things, she replied, but not this. That afternoon Amira stopped at a modest clothing boutique on the way home. She purchased a deep teal scarf, a symbol of renewal in her grandmother's tradition. She let the saleswoman wrap it carefully, knowing she would wear it on the day silence ended. Back in the guest house, she reheated lentil soup while Layla recited multiplication facts. Salim sketched rockets on scratch paper. Their ordinary chatter laid over Amira's thoughts like a lullaby over drums. Later, after bedtime, she opened the laptop again. The Aurora Tech share valuation had updated. Her net worth climbed as the page refreshed. She allowed herself one indulgence. She Googled coastal properties with large windows and wide gardens where children could chase sunbeams. Then she snapped the laptop shut. Tariq's conquest laughter wafted through the garden, but it no longer pierced her. Each new decibel only tightened the spring of consequence that waited to snap. Amira leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. The plan blossomed behind her eyelids, intricate and unstoppable. The woman behind the silence had found her voice, and it sounded like thunder on the horizon. A single bulb dangled from the ceiling of the guest house like a lonely sun, illuminating walls painted in a dull shade of oatmeal that seemed to swallow color. Amira decided those walls would not define her children's memories. With old bedsheets and markers she turned them into a mural of galaxies where neon comets streaked toward distant moons. Salim painted a rocket in crimson, while Layla dotted the sky with stars so bright they refused to fade even when the markers began to dry. Is the rocket taking us somewhere? Salim asked, tongue pressed between his teeth as he filled in a booster. Yes, Amira said, kneeling beside him. It is taking us to a place called Tomorrow, where brave people build their own rules. Layla clapped, smearing gold ink across her cheek. Will we see it soon? Amira kissed the smear away. Very soon. Outside, laughter drifted from the main house. Music pulsed, slow, sultry, heavy on bass notes meant for bodies pressed too close together. Amira's fingers tightened on the marker until the cap cracked. She inhaled and exhaled, letting the sound pass through her like wind through reeds. When bedtime arrived, she tucked Layla under a quilt printed with dancing elephants and stroked Salim's hair until his eyelids fluttered. Mema, he mumbled, half asleep. Why are we sleeping here if the big house is empty? Amira's throat tightened. We are camping while they fix a leak, she whispered, the light burning her tongue. You love camping, remember? Salim grinned at the memory of last summer's night under stars. Will we make s'mores? We will make something even better, she promised. She switched off the lamp. The mural glowed faintly in the moonlight, rockets poised for launch. Amira stood alone in the quiet and promised herself she would never allow her children to feel the weight of exile. She pressed her palm to the window. Across the lawn, Celine's silhouette passed in front of the picture window, wrapped in the satin of Amira's former life. 3 nights later a soft knock rattled the thin guest-house door. Amira opened it to find Hafsa wrapped in a trench coat glistening with rain. Her eyes flashed with urgency. I left my husband asleep, she said, stepping inside. Tell me everything. Amira poured mint tea into chip mugs. Steam rose between them like a fragile screen. She described Tariq's ultimatum, the move, the parties, the laughter. Hafsa's disbelief hardened into fury. You are living in a stone thrown by your own husband, she hissed. He parades her around while you pretend your children are on holiday. Amira sipped tea that tasted of metal. Pretending is easier than explaining betrayal. Hafsa slammed her cup down, tea sloshing. He does not deserve your silence. Amira's shoulders straightened. Silence is temporary. It is the bowstring pulled back before an arrow flies. Hafsa studied her friend, saw the spark in her gaze, and nodded. Then let me help you aim. They spoke until dawn, mapping contingencies. Hafsa offered a townhouse as a fallback. She promised to contact a real estate agent who owed her a favor. When the sun cracked the horizon, Hafsa squeezed Amira's hands. You are not alone, she whispered. Do not forget that when the house across the garden seems loud. Amira's chest loosened with gratitude. I will remember. Friday evening, Tariq stood at the guest house door with takeout boxes balanced in his arms. Celine waited behind him, eyes flicking over the cramped space with polite revulsion. The smell of garlic naan and butter chicken filled the air. We brought dinner, Tariq announced like a benefactor. Family night. Amira stepped aside, masking her shock. Celine perched on the only armchair as if it were contaminated. Tariq set plates on the small table while Salim and Layla bounced with excitement over restaurant food. Over dinner, Tariq asked shallow questions about school. Celine complimented Layla's braids then scrolled through her phone. Amira watched the scene as if through glass, detached and calm. Dad, Salim said, mouth full of naan. Can we go back home tomorrow? The mural is done. Tariq's gaze darted to Amira. Not yet, champ. Grown-up things. Celine leaned toward the children. You are so lucky. When I was your age, my parents sent me to boarding school. This is like a vacation. Layla wrinkled her nose. Vacations have pools, not spiders in corners. Amira almost laughed. Tariq reddened. He reached for Celine's hand as if to anchor himself. We should head back, he said, rising abruptly. Big day tomorrow. Enjoy your big day, Amira replied, stacking plates. We will enjoy our vacation. Celine offered a brittle smile and swept out the door. Tariq lingered. Thank you for being accommodating, he said. Amira met his eyes. Steady. Accommodation is a service. I charge for services. Confusion flickered across his face. Before he could speak, she turned and walked to the sink. Water roared, drowning further talk. He left without another word. That night Amira's phone pinged with a message from Rafiq. Final draft of trust documents ready for signature. Transfer procedures outlined. Tomorrow's board meeting moved to 9 a.m. Car will arrive at 8. Amira's pulse thrummed. She opened the wardrobe, really just a curtained alcove, and removed a dress wrapped in tissue. It was ivory crepe, tailored for a cousin's wedding she never attended. She laid it across the bed. Next she slipped her grandmother's thin gold bangle over her wrist, a circle unbroken. Before sleep she knelt by the children, smoothing blankets. You will see something amazing tomorrow, she whispered into the darkness. Remember that your mother is braver than silence. She dreamed of rockets launching, each plume of fire erasing a lie. Morning wrapped the city in crisp autumn. Dew glittered on grass like scattered diamonds. The black Tesla SUV glided through the gate precisely at 8. Its paint gleamed so deeply it seemed to drink the sunlight. Amira stepped out of the guest house wearing the ivory dress, teal scarf draped across her shoulders, and the gold bangle catching light. Salim held her left hand, Layla her right. The driver, a polite man in charcoal suit, opened the rear door. Ms. Bache, he greeted. Neighbors peered through curtains. Celine stood on the veranda clutching a mug. Her eyes widened when she saw the Tesla emblem. Tariq emerged behind her, tie half-knotted, confusion etched between his brows. Amira, where are you going? She kissed her children's cheeks. To work. We can talk later, he called, as if the driveway were a long-distance phone line. Amira smiled at Celine, whose porcelain complexion paled. Then she entered the Tesla, doors sighing shut behind her. The vehicle rolled away, leaving Tariq mute in the exhaust of possibilities he had never imagined. Skyscrapers launched the sky, the mirrored windows reflecting a woman rising. In the tower lobby of Aurora Tech, emerald banners announced Innovation Day. Employees buzzed like electrons, unaware that the quiet woman stepping from the elevator owned more of their future than most of them would ever grasp. In a mahogany-paneled conference room, board members stood when she entered. Rafiq gestured to the head seat. Madam Chair for the day, he said with a twinkle. Amira settled gracefully. Salim and Layla sat at a small table with coloring books provided by Rafiq's assistant. They glanced around, awed by leather chairs and panoramic views. The meeting began. Presentations mapped revenue curves, market penetration, and security protocols. Amira listened, asked incisive questions, and signed documents that shifted millions with the stroke of a pen. When the chief financial officer projected post-IPO valuations, gasps rippled. Amira's stake translated into a figure that made her childhood dream of opening a bakery seem quaint. During a break, the CEO approached. We never expected our seed investors to stay silent this long, he confessed, shaking her hand. Your faith in us is legendary. Amira smiled. Silence can be an elegant investment strategy. Rafik led her to the executive dining lounge overlooking the harbor. White linen glowed under chandeliers shaped like constellations. Salim pressed his nose to the glass wall, pointing at cargo ships that looked like toy blocks. While the children devoured grilled cheese sandwiches cut into stars, Rafik slid a folder across the table. Property transfer drafts, trust allocations for each child, divorce petition template should you decide to file. Amira traced the embossed logo on the cover. Is it strange that this feels like ordering from a menu? Freedom often comes printed on fine paper, Rafik replied. She signed where tabs indicated. Each signature felt like pulling invisible stitches from her skin. When finished, she closed the folder and exhaled a decade of repression. One more step, Rafik said. He slid a slim black card toward her. Her name gleamed in platinum letters above limitless credit. For expenses until the shares liquidate. Amira slipped it into her wallet beside grocery store reward cards and a photo strip of the children in silly hats. Contrast tasted sweet. The Tesla returned them to the guest house late afternoon. Layla dozed, head against Amira's shoulder, while Salim flipped through a book on robotics gifted by an engineer. The driver opened the door. Across the lawn, Salim watered roses with performative ease, though the hose sprayed more air than water. Tariq's sedan was gone. Amira thanked the driver. Tomorrow at 9, she said. He bowed. Inside the guest house, she brewed mint tea and spread documents on the table. Each page bore her signature, but soon they would bear authority. She highlighted action items: file property seizure, execute bank transfer, schedule locksmith. Salim studied the blue stamps on the papers. Is this homework? Yes, she said, smiling. Adult homework. What happens when it is finished? She tapped his nose. Then rockets launch. At dusk, Salim knocked without waiting to be invited. We need the spare key to the garden shed, she announced. Tariq asked me to find a ladder. Amira corked her pen. Shed keys on a hook behind the boiler. Salim's gaze flicked to the spread of documents. She leaned closer. When she spoke again, her voice cracked like thin ice. Amira, do you remember that bracelet Tariq was buying? He wants to give it to me tomorrow at dinner with his parents. I would prefer you not be present. It might be uncomfortable. Amira rose. The ivory dress accentuated her height. Uncomfortable is relative. Try raising children in exile. Salim paled but straightened. You have been gracious. Do not spoil it. Amira stepped closer, her voice a velvet blade. Spoiling requires power. Are you Satan you have any? Salim blinked. Tariq loves me. He also loved me, Amira whispered. Ask yourself what that means. Salim retreated, clutching her composure like a fragile vase. That night Amira wrote 2 letters. The first was to Tariq. I once believed our vows were stone. You traded them for sand. By the time you read this, the house you filled with echoes will belong to the woman who built it from breath. Do not come looking for sympathy. It vacated the premises with me. The second letter was to her younger self. Dear Amira of 10 years ago, you worried that asking for space meant you were ungrateful. You feared that building dreams outside your marriage would shrink his pride. I am writing from the far shore to tell you that a woman who shrinks her light to fit someone else's comfort will suffocate in darkness. Shine wildly, little sister. The right people will adjust their eyes. She folded the letters and placed them in her journal. Midnight found her on the porch, starlight painting silver trails in her hair. Hafsa texted. All set. Agent has 3 listings ready whenever you choose. Amira replied. Thank you. Tomorrow the first domino falls. She closed the phone and looked at the main house, windows ablaze. In one upstairs room she saw Tariq, phone to ear, pacing. He looked small, a marionette waiting for strings to be cut. Enjoy your stage, she murmured. The curtain is coming down. A breeze rustled jasmine vines. Somewhere a clock chimed the hour. Amira lifted her chin to the wind and felt the universe rotate. Tomorrow she would steer its axis. 2 weeks after the family dinner in the guest house, the main house bloomed into nightly festivities that spilled onto the manicured lawn. Neighbors driving home after work slowed their cars, drawn by the glow of fairy lights strung through jacaranda branches and the hum of soft jazz that drifted beyond the gates. On Friday evenings a catering van rattled up the drive, unloading trays of saffron shrimp skews and towers of pistachio macarons. Amira watched from the guesthouse porch, sipping mint tea while Salim and Layla assembled a Lego city on the rug behind her. Each laugh that floated from the grand veranda carried a small bob, sharp enough to prick the skin of a memory, yet never sharp enough to draw blood in them all. She had learned to wear thicker armor. Celine drifted through these nights like a queen in borrowed silk. Her voice lilted above the music as she retold stories of European boarding schools, ski trips in Courchevel, summers in Santorini. Guests nodded, dazzled by the brightness of a woman who, Amira noted, never asked a single question in return. During one soiree Amira spotted a delicate vase on the coffee table inside, a piece she had bought in a dusty market in Fez during their honeymoon. Tariq had called it the ugliest thing in Morocco, but she refused to leave without it. Now Celine admired its boho charm for an audience of realtors and junior architects, oblivious to its history. Amira could have marched across the yard, reclaimed her purchase with righteous fury, and shattered any illusion Celine had built. Instead she sipped her tea, tasting spearmint and steel. The vase was nothing more than painted clay. Legacy could not be stolen so easily. On a breezy Sunday morning Tariq's mother arrived unannounced. Zainab Baker, always immaculate in ash blue silk and pearls, stepped from her chauffeured sedan with a bouquet of white lilies. Celine greeted her with effusive compliments on her headscarf and youthful skin. Amira heard the knock on the guesthouse door while helping Layla draw rocket fins for the mural. Zainab entered without waiting for a response. She surveyed the cramped quarters, folded futon, children's shoes lined beneath a makeshift shelf, stacks of legal documents hidden beneath a blanket. Her eyes reddened with unshed tears. "My daughter," she whispered, using the name she had bestowed on Amira the day Tariq proposed. "Why are you here instead of in your home?" Amira gestured to the NASA-coloring book open on the coffee table. The children wanted adventure. Zainab carried decades of matriarchal disappointment. He should have built adventure inside the walls he vowed to share with you. She glanced back at the main house, where Celine's laugh rang out like crystal chimes. "He says you agreed to this arrangement." "I agreed to protect my children from conflict," Amira replied. "The arrangement was his." Zainab stepped closer, voice low. "Whatever you plan, remember he is still their father. Do not let wrath poison their hearts." "Wrath?" Amira tasted the word. "I have no wrath, only boundaries." Zainab cupped Amira's cheeks. "Your silence frightens him more than screaming ever could. I suspect it should frighten me as well." Amira covered Zainab's hands with her own. "Fear is heavy. Choose relief instead. Very soon the children will have a new home filled with laughter that carries no barbs." Tears slipped down Zainab's face. She pressed a small velvet pouch into Amira's palm. "This belonged to my grandmother. I wanted to give it to you on your wedding anniversary, but circumstances changed. Keep it for your daughter." Amira opened the pouch later that night and found a rose gold pendant shaped like a blooming camellia. She knew its value surpassed gold. It was endorsement from the woman who once shaped Tariq's conscience. Celine's sparkling facade began to chip in subtle places. One afternoon Amira overheard her shouting into a phone on the veranda. "You promised a design partnership." Celine hissed. "Now the fame thinks I am only the partner's toy." She paced, stilettos punching tiny crescents into the wooden floor. "I moved into this provincial city for you. Fix it, Tariq." Amira retreated before Celine noticed the witness, but the words echoed. Even roses demand to be watered, and Celine's thorns were emerging in the drought of authentic respect. The following week Celine hosted a luncheon for Tariq's colleagues. She instructed the caterers to serve oysters flown in that morning. During dessert, one guest asked if she preferred local produce to imported delicacies. Celine laughed and declared local markets adorable in their simplicity. The comment circulated through the office by Monday afternoon, souring potential allies. Tariq began arriving home with tension between his brows. He drank expensive red wine in the study alone, door closed, while Celine scrolled through social feeds in the living room. Their laughter grew sporadic, brittle. Amira understood something vital about the man she had once loved. He fed on admiration the way vines feed on trellises. Celine's admiration had burned bright but brief. Now it flickered, leaving Tariq to grope for the next source of light. Rafik called one evening during another guesthouse campout dinner. "We received a second offer for a block of your shares," he said, voice calm but urgent. "A venture capital fund from Singapore. The premium is generous but would reduce your voting power below 10%. "Not yet," Amira replied, stirring lentils. "I will not weaken my position before the final move. Tell them to wait." After the children fell asleep, she considered the offer. Wealth was not the goal, leverage was. She needed every ounce of influence when the storm reached Tariq's front door. Only then could she ensure the children's future remained untarnished by legal warfare. She folded her strategy sheet and slipped it into Zainab's velvet pouch, tucking both under her pillow. One day, she thought, Layla would read these pages and learn that resilience can bloom even in the darkest soil. Midweek, Amira knelt among the jasmine vines, pruning dead branches. Celine approached, heels crunching gravel. "You garden?" Celine asked, arms crossed. "I cultivate," Amira answered. "Gardening is for those who fear date." Celine scoffed. "Tariq worries the vines will damage the fence." Amira clipped a brown stem. "Vines only break fences when no one guides them. Much like ambition." She stood, meeting Celine's icy gaze. "Did you come to trim the vines or to measure them?" Celine's lip curled. "I came to remind you that your guesthouse lease expires soon. We have plans for a design studio out here." Amira wiped soil from her hands. "Then you should consult the property owner before remodeling." "I am standing with him," Celine snapped. "No," Amira said softly, "you are not." Celine blinked, confusion flickering. Amira turned away, leaving her in the shade of vines that refused to recognize her commands. On a Thursday evening, thunderclouds banked over the horizon. Tariq arrived home to find Celine's suitcases by the door. An argument erupted, voices ricocheting off marble. Words like ungrateful, shallow, burden, and obligation drifted through open windows. Celine covered Layla's ears. Amira guided them into the guesthouse, closing the door on the symphony of collapse. Later, lightning flashed, illuminating Tariq standing in the garden alone. Rain streaked his face as he stared at the guesthouse. Amira watched through a slit in the curtain while he lifted a hand, as if to knock, then dropped it. Finally he retreated inside, shadow swallowed by darkness. She realized she felt no triumph, only an echo of pity for the man who mistook novelty for love. 3 days later Tariq opened a letter embossed with the seal of a private bank he did not recognize. His brow furrowed deeper with each line. The letter confirmed the closure of their joint liquidity account at Amira's request and the transfer of remaining funds to a private trust in her name. He crushed the paper in his fist. "Amira!" he shouted, storming across the lawn. She was inside preparing cinnamon rolls for breakfast. Salim and Layla sat at the table, noses filled with sweet steam. Tariq burst through the door, face mottled. "What have you done with our money?" Amira removed the tray from the oven, unfazed by his thunder. "I secured it." "Secured it? We have bills due, mortgage payments." "The mortgage will sort itself out," she said, sliding rolls onto a cooling rack. "Enjoy a cinnamon roll before you worry." He stayed in disbelief. The children eyed him warily, tension thickening the air. Amira met his gaze with tranquil certainty that unnerved him more than fury would have. "This is not over," he growled, backing out. Amira carried a roll to each child. "Blow on it gently," she instructed, voice calm. The door slammed. Salim exhaled. Layla traced icing swirls with her finger. Outside, thunder grumbled again, as if endorsing her prophecy. On a crystalline Wednesday morning the neighborhood awoke to birdsong crackling in cool air. Amira dressed in dove-gray trousers and a linen blouse. Around her neck she fastened Zainab's camellia pendant. Today was signing day. The Tesla pulled up exactly at 7:30. Earlier than usual. This time 2 vehicles followed, a discreet security sedan and a small moving van rented under Rafiq's firm. Salim and Layla, now used to these rides, hop inside with polished shoes and lunchboxes. Amira locked the guesthouse door and turned the key over in her palm. She thought of every tear shed within those walls, every whispered bedtime story, every plan scribbled past midnight. Then she slipped the key into her purse. The lock would soon change. At Aurora headquarters the atmosphere resembled a festival. Balloons in company colors arched above the lobby desk. Press badges dangled from photographers who snapped rapid bursts as executives rehearsed sound bites about disruption and vision. In a private conference room, Amira signed the final tranche of documents: share lock, trust finalization, property transfer order, and a motion granting her limited power of attorney to Rafiq for immediate filings. Each signature slotted another stone into the fortress she was building around her children's future. "Congratulations," Rafiq said, shaking her hand. "You are officially untouchable." Amira smiled. "Untouchable is lonely. I prefer unstoppable." While Salim practiced coding exercises with an intern and Layla built castles from magnetic tiles, Amira's phone buzzed repeatedly. Tariq's face appeared, growing redder in each new voicemail preview. She silenced the device. There would be time for dialogue, but on her terms. When she emerged from the elevator shortly before noon, journalists angled lenses at her. "Are you the mystery investor?" one asked. Amira placed a finger to her lips in playful secrecy and guided her children toward the exit. Cameras clicked like hail on a metal roof. At precisely 1:33, black vehicles glided down Maple Crescent toward the Baker residence. Curtains twitched. Retirees paused mid-walk, dogs tugging leashes. Children on bikes slowed to admire the convoy as it halted before the iron gates. The neighbors knew Tariq hosted lavish gatherings, but they had never seen black-suited security staff step out with cardboard tubes of official-looking documents. The tableau froze the street in collective suspense. Amira emerged from the Tesla last, teal scarf fluttering behind her like a banner. Salim and Layla held matching folders embossed with the Aurora logo. Even at 7 and 8, they sensed a ceremony unfolding. A hush rippled through the onlookers as the security chief unlocked the gate. Amira walked the stone path flanked by rose bushes she once pruned herself. Each step felt like reclaiming a heartbeat previously surrendered to Faye. Tariq flung the front door open, suit jacket half on, tie askew. His eyes darted from Amira to the entourage behind her. "What is this?" he demanded. "A transition," Amira replied, voice even. "May we come in?" She spoke as though refusing her would be impolite. He stepped back. The living room smelled of stale wine and wilting lilies. Celine perched on the sofa, mascara tracks marring porcelain cheeks. Amira nodded to the security chief, who handed Tariq an envelope thicker than any court summons. "Legal notice," the man explained politely. Tariq tore it open, scanning lines that blurred into panic. He looked up. "Foreclosure. You moved the mortgage." "You cannot." "I can," Amira said. "We both signed spousal power clauses when we refinanced last year. I shifted the lien. Loan default followed. The bank sold the debt." She paused, letting each fact settle like stones in a still pond. "I bought the debt." Celine gasped. Tariq's mouth opened but no words formed. Amira continued. "You have 72 hours to vacate. After that, trespass laws apply." She turned to Celine. "Guests must leave today." Celine stood, knees trembling. "Tariq, do something." He crumpled the notice, eyes wild. "You would do this to the father of your children." "I would do this for the mother of my children," Amira corrected. "The house was never yours to squander." Celine tugged Amira's sleeve. "Mema, may we see our room?" Amira knelt. "Soon, Habibi. I must speak with your father." Layla peered at Celine. "Are you the lady who borrowed Mema's vase?" she asked with childlike innocence. Celine blushed crimson. Tariq's shoulders sagged under the weight of his unraveling narrative. Tariq's voice dropped to a frantic whisper. "We can fix this. Sell the shares, reinstate the loan. I will end the affair, apologize." Amira lifted a hand. "Your apologies are bandages on amputations. Keep them." His knees buckled. He sank onto the edge of the sofa, head in hands. The room pulsed with the ghost of the parties he had hosted, each laugh echoing now like mockery. Celine gathered her purse, face contorted. "You used me," she spat at Tariq. Then she faced Amira with forced dignity. "Congratulations on your triumph." Amira considered the woman for a moment, seeing not a villain but a mirror of youthful search for validation. "Triumph is loud," she said gently. "This is reclamation." Celine nodded once, tears glimmering, and walked out. The security chief escorted her to the gate, a silent witness to the consequences of borrowed shine. Rafiq arrived moments later carrying a slim leather folder. He placed it on the coffee table, the same table that once displayed Amira's fez vase. "Deed transfer for your signature, Tariq," he said. Tariq looked up, eyes bloodshot. "If I sign, what is left for me?" "Reflection," Amira answered. "And perhaps growth." With shaking hands he signed. The blue ink bled slightly on the expensive paper. Rafik blew on it to dry the signature, then closed the folder. "It is done," he announced. Security staff began cataloging valuables. Tariq stumbled upstairs to pack. Amira guided her children through the hallway lined with photos of vacations, birthdays, and anniversaries. She felt neither nostalgia nor regret, only gratitude for the lessons etched in every frame. In the master bedroom she found the ugly fez vase on a dresser. She lifted it carefully and carried it to the children. "That is yours, Mema," Layla said. "It belongs in our next house." "Yes," Amira agreed, cradling the vase like an old friend. "It belongs wherever we feel safe." That night Amira returned to the guest house one last time. She collected the strategy sheets, the velvet pouch, and the memories woven into the humble space. Before locking the door, she ran a hand over the walls painted with galaxies. The rockets still pointed toward tomorrow. She whispered farewell to the room that had sheltered a transformation, then stepped into the night. Across the lawn, the main house stood quiet, lights off, as though bracing for its own metamorphosis. The Tesla waited at the curb. Amira buckled the children into the back seat. As they pulled away, Layla asked, "Are we poor now that we left the big house?" Amira smiled in the rearview mirror. "We are rich in lessons. That will carry us until the new house is ready." Salim pressed his forehead to the window, watching the silhouette of the home recede. "I will not miss it," he declared. Amira believed him. Some rooms hold ghosts better left behind. The convoy rolled toward the coastal highway, engines purring in harmonious promise. Above them the sky blushed with the first hues of dusk, rose, lavender, and gold. It looked like a painting a child might hang on a mural where rockets soar. Amira reached for the visor mirror and caught her reflection. Eyes steady, jaw relaxed, camellia pendant glowing at her throat. Resilience looked good on her, she decided. Ahead, the horizon opened like the first page of a book no longer bound by someone else's plot. Amira pressed her palm to the window, feeling the pulse of the engine beneath, and whispered a quiet benediction. Onward. The temporary apartment stood 12 floors above the harbor, its balcony wrapped in curved glass that caught sunrise like a polished shell. Amira leased it for 3 months, long enough to finish furnishing the new house she had purchased in a gated enclave farther up the coast. The unit came sparsely decorated, all chrome edges and pale wood, but Salim and Layla treated it as a spaceship. They built cardboard cockpits near the balcony doors and yelled course corrections whenever a seagull drifted by. On the first morning, Amira brewed cardamom coffee that filled the minimalist kitchen with the scent of home. She wrapped herself in a cotton robe and stepped onto the balcony. Cargo ships crawled across a lavender horizon, each vessel carrying goods destined for lives that would never intersect with her own. She lifted the mug and whispered gratitude into the cool salt air. Then she returned inside, ready to turn quiet triumph into public change. By midweek, Amira had leased 2 floors of an Art Deco building downtown, once a textile warehouse and recently converted into area offices. The sign on the lobby directory read the Amani Foundation in brushed bronze. Below it, a second placard identified Amani Ventures, her for-profit investment arm dedicated to women-led startups in emerging markets. Rafik accompanied her on a walkthrough. Sunlight streamed through factory windows, gilding dust motes that floated like confetti. "Every empire begins with empty rooms," he said, opening a door onto a vast hall marked Future Co-working Lab in chalk. Amira pictured rows of modular desks, mural walls painted by local artists, a daycare corner so founders could work without worrying about childcare. Order ergonomic chairs in ocean green, she decided. The color of possibility. Rafik made a note, then handed her a slim folio. "Press wants your comment on the foreclosure. It will leak by Friday." Amira flipped the folio closed. "Issue a statement. We do not comment on private family matters, but we celebrate every woman who reclaims her narrative." Rafik laughed softly, elegant and lethal. "Add that we will announce a seed fund competition next quarter," she added. "I would rather feed headlines with opportunity than gossip." Word traveled fast among rising professionals thirsting for meaning. Within 2 weeks, Amira interviewed 30 candidates and selected 10 economists, coders, a social worker specializing in domestic violence recovery, and a former journalist with a gift for viral storytelling. They gathered in the empty hall while movers assembled desks. Amira addressed them from a stepladder that served as an impromptu podium. Her voice echoed across concrete. I built this foundation because a locked guest house taught me that exile can be an incubator. We are here to shorten that incubation for every woman still hiding her greatness behind closed doors. She described microgrant programs, coding bootcamps, and legal clinics funded by shares of Aurora Tech. She outlined a mentorship network stretching from Lagos to Jakarta, Nairobi to Sao Paulo. When she finished, the team erupted in applause that bounced off high ceilings and wrapped around her like warm cloth. In that roar, she felt the grand piano chord of her life finally resolve. One rainy afternoon, Amira exited the building and found Celine waiting beneath the awning, drenched, mascara bleeding rivers down her cheeks. "Please," Celine whispered, voice frayed. "I need work. My parents froze my accounts after the scandal. I have nowhere to go." Amira ushered her inside and poured hot ginger tea. Celine's hand shook around the cup. "I never meant to destroy a family," she said. "Tariq promised me partnership, marriage, stability. When you took the house, I realized I was just an accessory." "Accessories can choose whether to clasp themselves around emptiness," Amira replied, choosing compassion over contempt. "What do you want now?" "I studied interior design," Celine said. "I can curate spaces that heal." Amira considered the echoing corridors upstairs. "The daycare corner needs warmth, color, softness. Draft a proposal by Monday. If it sings, you will have a contract and a salary modest but fair." Celine's tears fell harder, but hope glimmered through. "Thank you." Amira watched her leave, heels clicking like tentative punctuation. She felt no satisfaction in Celine's fall. Not every lesson must end with humiliation. Some end with humility. Late that night, the apartment intercom buzzed. Rafiq's voice crackled through. "He is downstairs. Drunk, agitated." Amira's pulse remained steady. "Do not let him up. Call a taxi. If he resists, call the police." In the lobby, Tariq sagged against marble, tie missing, shade half untucked. "I need to see my children," he slurred when the security guard tried to help him stand. "She stole everything." Rafiq stood beside the guard, arms crossed. "Visitation will be arranged when you are sober and scheduled." Tariq's eyes, glassy with despair, flicked to the elevator where he imagined Amira watching. "I loved you," he shouted toward unmoving doors. "You turned me into a beggar." Upstairs, Amira closed her eyes. She remembered his honey-smooth vows on their wedding day. How those words once wrapped her like silk. Now they felt like paper that had burned, leaving fragile ash. She whispered a silent prayer for him to find Amira honest enough to spark change, then turned to comfort Salim, who had woken at the commotion. "It is only thunder," she told her son, guiding him back to bed. "Storms always pass." 3 days later, Hafsa arrived with warm cornbread and her famously blunt counsel. She found Amira at her desk analyzing grant applications. "You have become a constellation," Hafsa declared, hugging her. "I can barely keep track of your light." Amira laughed. "Light is best shared. Sit and read these." They sifted proposals until midnight, marking margins with ideas. Hafsa lifted one application from a young coder building mobile clinics for rural mothers. "This is gold," she said. "Invite her to coffee. She needs guidance as much as cash." Amira scribbled an invitation note. "You should join the mentorship board," she told Hafsa. "The women need someone fearless." Hafsa pretended to protest, but her eyes danced. "Twist my arm." By dawn, they had sketched a 12-month accelerator curriculum: finance basics, storytelling, mental health support. Amira watched her friend yawn and realized that leadership, at its core, was offering others a stage on which to shine. Aurora Tech's public debut arrived on a Tuesday, electric with anticipation. Amira chose a simple navy dress and low heels. In the children's room, she found Salim studying stock ticket tutorials, while Layla created a paper chain countdown. "Are we rich today?" Layla asked. Amira knelt. "Rich comes in waves. What matters is how we surf." At the stock exchange bell, Aurora shares opened 30% above target. instantly tripling the value of Amira's remaining stake. Journalists flooded her inbox. She replied with one sentence: "Innovation is oxygen. Share it freely." That afternoon, she sold a small block of shares to seed the foundation's endowment, leaving the majority intact for future voting strength. The sale netted enough to fund the first 5 years of Amani programs without touching principal. 30 days after leasing the Art Deco building, Amira stood beneath a satin ribbon strung across its entrance. City officials, local entrepreneurs, and a cluster of curious neighbors gathered on the sidewalk. Salim held golden scissors almost as tall as his arm. Layla clutched a bouquet of violets. "Ready?" Amira asked them. Salim beamed. 3, 2, 1, ignite. He snipped. The crowd cheered. Confetti cannons burst, showering the street in biodegradable petals. A brass band erupted into a high-tempo melody that sent Layla twirling. Reporters thrust microphones forward. "What is the first priority of the Amani Foundation?" one asked. Amira spoke with clarity that cut through music. "Our first priority is to turn silent suffering into audible possibility. We will start by funding legal aid for women who need a voice in courtrooms designed to ignore them." The quote flashed across evening news. Donations poured in from strangers who recognized truth when they heard it. Exhausted but exhilarated, Amira returned to the balcony that night. The sea reflected city lights in shimmering bands. She felt Hafsa's arm slide around her shoulders. "You did it," Hafsa whispered. "Not yet," Amira answered. "Empires stand when vision outlives the architect." She closed her eyes, listening to waves break against stone. Somewhere in the distance thunder muttered, but she felt no fear. Storms could roar all they liked. Her ship had sails made of purpose. Tariq spent 6 weeks couchsurfing between colleagues' spare rooms. Each morning he sent desperate texts that Amira ignored until Rafik advised, "Engage before a judge interprets silence as obstruction." She drafted a visitation schedule and couriered it to Tariq along with a polite request to choose between weekday evenings or alternate Saturdays. The package included a prepaid legal aid voucher for his own counsel, a courtesy rarely extended in acrimony splits. The courier found Tariq in a rented studio lit by a single bulb. He signed for the envelope with shaking hands. That night he replied, "Saturdays, please. I will be better by then." Amira exhaled relief. Empathy did not require enabling. It required boundaries wide enough to stand on yet porous enough to let humanity drift through. The first supervised visit took place in the public gardens near the art museum. Amira watched from a bench as Tariq knelt beside Salim, inspecting a Model A plane the boy had built. The conversation was clumsy but earnest. Layla hid behind a tree at first, then emerged when Tariq produced a coloring book of underwater creatures. After an hour, Tariq approached Amira. "Thank you," he said quietly. His eyes carried new shadows, but also a glint of humility. Amira nodded. "Their hearts are fragile. Handle them gently." He returned to the children without protest. The small victory tasted bittersweet. That evening Amira met Celine in the empty daycare corner, now freshly painted in sunrise hues, floor scattered with plush cushions shaped like moons. Celine presented mood boards of textures, plants, and soothing soundscapes for neurodiverse toddlers. "This is beautiful," Amira said. "Let us add sensory tunnels and a wall of bilingual story tablets." Celine's smile trembled between relief and disbelief. "You have every right to hate me." "Hate blocks vision," Amira replied. "We are building windows." They signed a 12-month contract. As Celine departed, she paused. "You saved me twice," she murmured. "Once from delusion, now from despair." "Save yourself a third time," Amira counseled. "Teach others what humility builds." The Foundation's launch gala filled the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel. Amira wore a cobalt gown that matched the pendant at her throat. Hafsa sparkled in silver. Rafik arrived with his partner, a gentle sculptor who gifted Amira a clay phoenix. Cameras flashed as Amira took the stage. She spoke of daughters who must never trade self-worth for shelter, of sons who must learn that strength includes tenderness, of empires best measured by lives lifted rather than coins counted. She announced a $10 million seed pool for ventures that solve problems facing marginalized mothers. The room erupted. A tech magnate pledged matching funds on the spot. A senator whispered about policy reforms. Behind the applause, Amira spotted Tariq standing near the exit, suit pressed, eyes damp. He raised a tentative hand. She inclined her head, an acknowledgement without invitation, then returned her gaze to the future blooming under chandeliers. After the gala, Amira escaped to the terrace overlooking the river. Cool air kissed her flushed cheeks. She sensed movement and turned to find Tariq, hands buried in pockets. "I will not stay," he said. "I only wanted to say congratulations. You turned ashes into constellations." Amira studied him. The arrogance had drained, leaving a man older than his years, holding regret like a cracked vessel. "Thank you," she said. "I hope you find your own stars." "I started therapy," he offered. "Learning why admiration felt like air to me." "That is a start," she allowed. Silence stretched, comfortable in its finality. He glanced at the hole where music still pulsed. "You were always the strong one." "Strength is forged," she corrected. "Yours can be, too." He nodded, tears shining. "Goodbye, Amira." "Good luck, Tariq." He walked away, silhouette folding into city lights. Amira did not watch long. The river shimmered, and her reflection looked whole. Back at the apartment, Layla waited up, pajamas speckled with stars. "Your dress is like nighttime magic," she declared, arms wide. Salim peeked from his bunk. "Did the grown-ups clap for you?" "Yes," Amira laughed, scooping Layla into a hug. "They clap for all of us." Layla touched the camellia pendant. "Does this mean we are rich now?" Amira set her daughter on the bed, tucking stray curls behind small ears. "Rich is a measure, freedom is a feeling. We are free. That is worth more than numbers." Salim grinned sleepily. "I like freedom. It is better snacks." He pointed to the kitchen where Hafsa had left honeycakes. Amira kissed each forehead, then stood between their beds, listening to breathing slow into dreams. The mural rockets were gone, but real ones now blazed in their imaginations. In the quiet that follows milestones, Amira curled on the balcony sofa, journal in lap. She opened to a blank page and wrote, "Exile is a cocoon, not a coffin. Betrayal is a scalpel, not a verdict. Rising is loud, but healing is louder." She closed the book, letting the ink dry in moonlight. Far below, waves whispered against stone, carrying the tale of a woman who found empire in silence and turned wounds into wings. She breathed in salt air, exhaled the last fragment of fear, and allowed herself to rest. Tomorrow would bring the final reckoning, but tonight belonged to peace earned the hard way, and peace, once earned, needed no permission to stay. Dusk draped the Baker residence in lavender shadow while movers lugged the last of Tariq's belongings through the gate. The neighborhood watched from curtained windows as the once celebrated architect stood on the lawn clutching a single suitcase. Everything else, bespoke furniture, oil paintings, custom sound system, had found new owners at short notice auctions. Consequence moves fast when money stops answering the door. Inside, a locksmith twisted the final tumblers of a new deadbolt. Rafik supervised, clipboard in hand. A court officer waited to verify the property transfer had been honored to the letter. Legal precision formed a moat no plea could bridge. Amira arrived just before the deadline expired, escorted by Hafsa, Celine, and 2 foundation staff who would catalog any items overlooked during the clearance. She wore a charcoal coat cinched at the waist, Zainab's camellia pendant gleaming at her throat. Her children trailed behind, each gripping a small potted succulent they had chosen for their future bedrooms. Tariq turned at the crunch of gravel. A week of restless nights had bruised crescents beneath his eyes. "You do not need to be here," he said, voice splintered. "Let me leave with dignity." "Dignity is a decision," Amira answered. "You may still choose it." He swallowed hard. "Where will I go?" "That is a question for the man who dismissed safety nets when they looked like common sense," she said, stepping past him toward the porch. "Your architect's imagination can design a path." The court officer handed Tariq a stamped document. "You have vacated in compliance. This acknowledges that fact." He signed, shoulders collapsing as ink met paper. Celine approached him, a cardboard box in her arms, his grandmother's recipe ledger, a framed childhood photo, the ugly necktie he wore on their first date. "I thought you would want these," she murmured. He accepted the box, lip quivering. "I am sorry, Celine." "Live the apology," she replied, then walked back to join Amira. When Tariq's taxi vanished around the corner, Amira unlocked the newly fitted door and ushered her children inside. The house smelled of fresh paint and empty rooms. Echoes lingered where laughter had once been poisoned, but they felt harmless now, like shadows with no source of light. "Choose any room as a launch pad," Amira told Salim and Layla. They darted up the staircase, shouts ricocheting through lofty halls. Hafsa wandered to the sunroom overlooking the garden. "I expected Triumph to taste sweeter," she confessed. "It tastes like soil," Amira said, rubbing her fingertips together. "Earthy, honest, ready for new seeds." The next morning Zainab arrived with containers of saffron rice and spiced lamb. She stepped across the threshold hesitantly, as if unsure the house would still know her name. Amira greeted her with a long embrace. "My son?" Zainab asked. "Safe, I hope," Amira answered. "Searching for what matters." Tears shimmered in Zainab's eyes. "He was raised better than this." "Lessons can take years to germinate," Amira replied. "We hope he lets them grow." Zainab clasped Amira's hands. "Thank you for guarding the children's hearts." "They guard mine, too," Amira said. "We protect each other." By the weekend, the property that once symbolized Tariq's status had changed character. Foundation volunteers arrived to sort items for charity, clothing for shelters, books for the community library, kitchenware for a culinary training program. Cameras captured Amira labeling boxes alongside Celine, proving that generosity can rise from ruins like ivy finding cracks in stone. Online gossip churned, but Amira fed it nothing. Silence remained her sharpest statement. 10 days later, Tariq phoned Rafiq with a request. He wanted to surrender his equity in the architecture firm in exchange for a chance to apprentice under a humanitarian design group building low-cost housing in flood-prone regions. Rafiq relayed the message to Amira. She considered it from her office overlooking the harbor. "If the offer is genuine, I will not stand in his way," she said. "Send the release forms." Rafiq arched an eyebrow. "Mercy even now." "Mercy is a muscle," she replied. "The more we use it, the less it strains our spirit." He smiled. "You will confuse your critics." "Confusion keeps them curious," she said, signing the document. On a crisp morning, Amira walked one last circuit of the house. Sunlight spilled through skylights, painting the oak floors in squares of gold. She traced the outline where the fez vase once sat, then lifted it from a packing crate. Hairline cracks laced its painted surface, yet it held together, imperfect, resilient, irreplaceable. She placed the vase in a padded box marked Keep and whispered goodbye to walls that had witnessed both unraveling and rebirth. Life does not always redeem spaces. Sometimes it releases them. A moving truck rumbled to life in the driveway. Amira locked the door and slipped the key into her pocket. It fit, but she would never use it again. 3 months later, Salim and Layla ran through the entrance hall of their new coastal home. The mansion perched on a cliff where waves smashed basalt below, scattering salt spray that turned sunsets into watercolor. Architecturally, it was modern African, rammed earth walls textured like woven cloth, white eaves carved with Adinkra symbols, and an interior atrium where a silk floss tree reached toward a retractable skylight. Every design decision whispered heritage and horizon in the same breath. Celine's team had transformed the children's wing into a galaxy-themed wonderland. Fiber optic stars blinked in a ceiling painted midnight blue. Kinetic mobiles of planets revolved on silent motors. Layla squealed when a motion sensor triggered constellations to shimmer under her footsteps. Salim declared the reading nook, shaped like a crescent moon, the official command deck of future missions. Hafsa arrived carrying a bronze plaque that read "Here We Rise." She mounted it beside the front door while Amira oversaw movers installing an oversized circular window in the living room, framing the horizon like a promise. On a balmy Saturday, the Amani Foundation hosted its first coastal retreat for survivor entrepreneurs at the mansion. 30 women from 8 countries gathered on the meadow overlooking the sea. They shared startup pitches that turned trauma into technology. Solar lamps designed by former domestic workers, fintech apps coded by widows, eco-friendly textiles woven by artisans who once hid bruises beneath factory uniforms. Amira opened the retreat with a simple statement: "We do not build tables hoping for seats that may never be offered. We build the whole house, then invite the world to share the view." Applause rose like gulls on an updraft. Over the next 3 days, workshops crackled with ideas. The chef, herself a graduate of a culinary rehabilitation program, served coconut ginger stew that left attendees licking spoons and picturing cafes they would one day own. At night they gathered around a fire pit where the cliff met sky. One by one they told stories of loss and rediscovery. Celine recounted her fall from ornamental trophy to purposeful designer. Tears became steam on hot cheeks, then crystallized into resolve. When the final ember died, Amira whispered into the DAC, "Ash is fatal." A month later, during golden hour, a modest sedan rolled up the drive. Tariq stepped out in work boots and a linen shirt streaked with clay from a construction site. He carried a wooden model of a flood-resilient shelter. Security notified Amira, who met him on the terrace. He removed his cap, eyes steady but humble. "I came to deliver this," he said, offering the model. "It is a thank you from the cooperative. Your foundation grant kept us building after the last storm." Amira accepted the miniature structure, impressed by its intricate joinery and elevated stilts. "It is beautiful work," she said. "Work that feeds instead of feeds on," he noted. "I am learning the difference." Silence unfurled between them, gentle this time. He glanced toward the sea where Layla and Salim chased kites, shaped like phoenixes. "They are thriving," he said. "They bloom in sunlight," she replied. "Help me keep the sky clay." He nodded. "I will." He tucked his hands into pockets and stepped back. "Thank you for the chance to try again." "Thank yourself," she said. "Choices are solitary journeys." He smiled, a small honest curve, then walked down the path and drove away, leaving dust that glowed in slanted light. Autumn arrived with saffron skies and breezes scented by the cliff's wild sage. The foundation's first cohort graduated, half securing seed investments, the rest entering an accelerator in Nairobi. The daycare hall Celine designed thrummed with giggles and the rustle of picture-book pages read in 3 languages. Amira's team launched an online platform that matched pro bono lawyers with women seeking protection orders. In its first week, the site logged 1,000 cases. The journalist on staff crafted a viral video titled "Silence is a Strategy, Not a Sentence," viewed 3 million times in 48 hours. Donations surged. Hafsa presided over a microloan committee that approved 10 village bakeries run by widows displaced by conflict. She mailed Amira a photograph of the first storefront opening, an arch of balloons beneath a sign that read "Bread of Bravery." One crisp winter evening the family gathered in the mansion's library, a circular room wrapped in oak shelves. Salim hunched over blueprints of a tidal-powered drone, while Layla braided her mother's hair, inserting tiny shells she had collected. "Mommy," Layla asked suddenly, "are we rich now?" Amira paused, the question echoing from that first night of liberation. She met her daughter's dark eyes, brimming with curiosity rather than longing. "We are rich in ways that count," Amira said. "We have a home where truth echoes louder than fear, friends who lift us, and horizons that invite us forward. Wealth is a story, freedom chooses the ending." Layla considered this, then grinned. "I will tell that story at school." "Make sure it has rockets," Salim added without looking up. Amira laughed, kissing each child. She gazed through the circular window where the moon hung colossal over the sea. Waves hurled themselves against the cliff in white explosions, as though applauding the mansion for daring to stand so close to their chaos. Later, alone in her study, Amira opened her journal to the last blank sheet. She wrote, "I once believed loyalty built unbreakable homes. Now I know homes are built by the courage to walk through every door life opens, even the ones labeled exit. Value is not measured by who stays. It is revealed by who rises. When silence holds purpose, its echo becomes the anthem of the unbroken." She closed the book and placed it in a drawer alongside Hafsa's plaque, Celine's first designed sketch, and the fez vase, still cracked, still holding flowers. Beyond the window, kites dipped and soared against a fading sky. Amira leaned back, listening to waves recite their endless poem about falling, shattering, and rising again. Tomorrow promised another tide, another dawn, another...
Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment your thoughts and share our channel with your friends. See you in the next story. From your favorite stories.